entrance fees to certain locations. At the beginning of my trip, I actually started going through the Pacific. So I went to all the little island countries like Samoa, Tonga, Vanuatu, Micronesia, and transportation costs in that part of the world is very high. And I knew it was going to be very high, so that's why I went there first, because if I ever ran into money problems down the road, at least I had that out of the way. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing to reduce your cost is to go to a part of the world that's cheap and don't move around a lot. The more you move around, the more you're going to be paying for vacation. So stay put someplace for a week or a month or something like that. Don't just be moving every couple of days.
Okay, so before you're going to be in Hawaii now for how long?
I'm here till the 19th, and then I go to Bangkok.
Okay, so when you go to Bangkok, how long will you?
Probably about a month.
About a month. Okay. So just kind of take me through the thought process. You're in Hawaii now, and I guess your total time there would be what, about 2 weeks?
A little under that.
Little under. Okay. So do you do some pre-trip planning before you get to Hawaii? In other words, when you were in Curacao, were you, on the computer searching for a spot to go to, or do you just turn up, or how does that work?
I almost always just show up. I had no place to stay until I had a 3-hour layover at the Kona airport. Yeah, I reserved a hotel while I was in Kona.
Okay.
Unless it's a major city like London, New York, or Tokyo, where I've had problems reserving a room in the past, I will usually just show up to a place without any reservation.
Okay, so is there a particular type of hotel that you're looking for when you get there? So when you get to Hawaii, do you say, okay, well, I stay at Best Westerns, I stay at Marriott's, or what's your protocol to find something?
Usually you can find like a 2-star hotel or a guest house. Those are going to be your most affordable options. Right now, I have a private room at a hostel in Waikiki, which ended up being probably the cheapest option for me for this area. It's kind of the high season, so you're going to be paying more as opposed to if I was here in, say, August.
Okay. So how old are you now, by the way, Gary?
I'm 41 now.
Okay, you're 41. Okay, so when you think hostel, obviously you think teenagers backpacking through Europe and things like that. Do you run into people in your age group in hostels, or is it mostly young?
It's a mix now. I'm seeing more and more older people. I've been at some places where younger people there, actually. Wow. A lot of people who are retired and want to travel on a budget will go to these places because you can cook your own food. They have a kitchen, and it's cheap.
Okay. Now, have you been able to leverage the power of the celebrity that you're, creating to get hotels to?
Yeah, over the last, say, 6 months, as my website has become more. One of the things I should note is that even though I live kind of the life that a lot of lifestyle design people, try to go after, I don't write about lifestyle design. I have a travel blog. I focus on photography, places I visit. And it's only been recently the travel industry have been waking up to bloggers. So, for example, earlier this year in Spain, I was invited by tourism people there, and so I was in Spain for several weeks. I went to Africa a few months ago. I was in Canada. My trip to Curacao and Aruba. So yeah, I'm doing more and more of these trips, and even my trip to Thailand is being paid for by Tourism Thailand.
Okay, so is that something where you reached out to Tourism Thailand and said, look, I want to come there. I want to help promote you on my website. Will you take care of this, or did they?
They come to me.
They come to you. So you get an email saying, hey, can you come?
Yeah. I very seldom, I can think of maybe one example where I've ever reached out and asked someone for some assistance. It usually occurs where I am getting requests for people to do X, Y, or Z.
And what type of things, when you go to Bangkok, what's the tourism industry looking for you to do? Promote Thailand specifically, restaurants, hotels, nightlife, or just blog about it, or what's the exchange?
Well, for the particular trip I'm going on, it's about medical tourism. Mm-hmm. So if you're aware, you can go to Thailand and they actually have rather good doctors, and it's extremely cheap compared to what you'd pay in the United States, especially for very standard procedures like dentistry, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be to help promote that. And Thailand has had a lot of problems with, the political protests and such over the last year. So they're looking to, kind of restore their image. And I should say I was in Thailand for like 3 months earlier this year. So, and I was there during the protests.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you happened to be in the several block radius where the protesters were, you had no idea anything was going on. You, of course, only cared about that few block area, and that's what everyone saw. So yeah, I just go and I blog about what I experience. And the other interesting thing is you're usually on a much tighter schedule when you go on these trips, but you get to do things you otherwise wouldn't be able to do or would be very expensive. So when I was in South Africa, I got to go do a great white shark dive where I went in a shark cage and they chummed the water and great white sharks came up to the cage. Got to go hot air ballooning, things like that.
Now, did you know when you set out on this journey that people would be reaching out to you because you've got the eyeballs now on your blog? Did you know that they would reach out to you and say, hey, we'll pay for you if you're willing to come here? Is that something that you planned on or hoped for?
No, I had no clue how the tourism industry works. And in fact, I'm still rather a novice in knowing how the industry works.
You mentioned that you don't talk about lifestyle design. And, I know that you recently just did a post on probably the guy who coined the phrase lifestyle design. I'm sure there's a bit of debate about that, but I think we can all agree that Tim Ferriss is the one who made it.
Well, I should note I started traveling before his book came out. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. I would. That my next question was going to be, did he inspire you to do this? And obviously,
no.
Which makes this even more authentic. Okay. Why do you not blog about lifestyle design? We're in sort of similar worlds, I suppose, because of travel. And there's so many people that are now blogging about lifestyle design, but very few people are actually really there's almost nobody doing what you're doing, sure, on that scale, but very few people are really living true lifestyle design, but there's zillions of people blogging about it. Is that sort of the reason why you're staying away from the lifestyle design world and keeping it travel?
I don't find it. What I find interesting are the places I go and the things I see. That's what people are fascinated by. They want to travel. They want to see the world. They want to see these things. That is what really motivates most people. And talking about things like the business of blogging, I almost always, with a few exceptions, keep that off of my site because that's not why people go there. I like talking about it, and I have no problem talking about it in other forums, like, on this podcast.
Yep.
But I keep the website about travel, about exploration and adventure, because I think that's what motivates people. And as far as lifestyle design, all of the things I read are all these meta 30,000 foot, break away from your cubicle, live your life like you want. And they're all these motivational posts that all kind of just reiterate the same point over and over and over. What they don't talk about are the logistics and the micro things of how do you do this? How do you set up a bank account in another country? How do you run a business in another country? There are some places that do that, but for the most part, it's all just the same motivational things over and over and over. And I should say, I like all the lifestyle design people I've met. I think they certainly have their heart in the right place, but for me, at least, it's not the motivation. It's not that macro level stuff. It's the micro level stuff that really is interesting and is important. And you talked about Tim Ferriss, and I'll give him this much. When he does write about things, he writes about, weight loss or, how to hack a language or these how-to things that aren't just these mile-high motivational type posts.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Hang on just 1 sec, and we'll be right back.
If you want to learn how Rob and Kim leverage technology to create the income, time, and freedom to regularly travel from one jet-set destination to the other using their proven system, you can claim your risk-free trial membership to Jet Set Money by going to getjetsetmoney.com. Here's Rob.
So you choose to go more vertical than just staying at 60,000 feet, because at some point you go, yeah, I get it. We all want to live a lifestyle design, but let's talk about something more meaningful, like what is it actually like being in Bangkok, and how do you unwind things to do this, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And by putting myself as a travel site, a lot of the things we've talked about in terms of press trips become available to me. Whereas if you just talk about break away from the cubicle over and over, those things will never become available to you. I get emails every week, about once a week, from people who say, Gary, I've never commented, I've never written you before. I just want to say